I'm Edie Lush, and here inside the Hub Culture Studio Davos 2020. Really pleased to be joined now by Rena Effendi, photographer. Tell me about the work, the photographic work that you've brought to show here in Davos.
Well, I'm a social documentary photographer with a focus on human interest stories, and the story I brought here is the story of humanity. It all revolves around a single man, a very brave man, an individual called Patricio Galvez. He is a Swedish Chilean poet and musician. He's a father of 3 and a grandfather of 7 children. His daughter, when she was 18, converted to Islam and married a radical Islamist. And together, them and their 4 children went to Syria, where he became a jihadist recruiter for the Islamic State. Both parents were killed in an airstrike, and 7 of their children survived and ended up in a camp, in a refugee camp in northeastern Syria, in Al-Hol. The grandfather was mourning the loss of his daughter and wanted to atone for her death, and he set out to save these children. And I followed him for about a year on assignment for the Wall Street Journal, and documented the entire journey from the moment he entered Syria to the moment.
Where were they living?
The children were trapped in a refugee camp called Al-Hol, along with 70,000 other people, mostly family members of ISIS.
Right.
And the grandfather came to Syria and went through several hurdles, spent perhaps about 6 weeks on the whole journey between Iraq and Syria, and managed to bring them back home to safety. He was the first man outside of France in Europe who managed to repatriate ISIS family members.
Back to France?
Back to Sweden. That's where he's from, yeah.
Wow, but they're, of course, not the only people who are like this.
Unfortunately, and that's part of the story. That's part of the story I'm trying to tell here in Davos, is that the fact that there are 28,000 children still trapped in squalid refugee camps and detention centers around northeast Syria. 8,000 of them, 20,000 of them are Iraqi and Syrian children. 8,000 of them are citizens of 60 countries of the world. Some of them are citizens of the Western countries, which championed human rights and signed up on the convention, to the Convention on the Rights of the Child 30 years ago. And we're seeing today an example of how these rights are not being upheld.
I live in the UK, and there was an example of a woman who had given birth. She was not. In fact, she lost her passport, and she was
stripped of her citizenship,
and she lost her baby as well. All she wanted to do was come back to give. What do you say to people who say that we can't let people back in because they are a security threat because they've spent time with ISIS?
More than half of these children are under 5 years old. So I'm asking you this: how can a 5-year-old be a security threat?
What they would say is it's safer to keep the child with the mother. So what would you say about bringing both back
I would
together?
say, when you have a criminal in your country that has committed a crime, do you strip that criminal of their passport and citizenship, or do you put that criminal on a trial? I would say bring them back, take care of the children, put those who have committed crimes, put them on trial. There is legislative framework for that. There are resources for that. And none of these threats that they quote are unsolvable issues. They're all solvable. And compared to the fact that these children today and these women are in an environment of violence and radicalization, and if we continue to ignore this crisis, they will pose a far greater threat to the world that will come to our doorstep one day. So I would say that issue needs to be dealt with and has been ignored for far too long.
Rena, thank you very much for coming by the Hub Culture Studio here in Davos, and I'm Edie Lush.